There's a great quote in there by the wonderful screenwriter of Mrs. Doubtfire, Randi Mayem Singer, who said, "Tell me a story, make me care." And when someone will tell me a story in plain spoken English, where they're focusing on who the character is and helping me get grounded in the setting and helping the plot move along, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And there is so little of it. Everybody's told to make it fancier, to burnish it, to make it bounce off the page, to make it pop, you know? I don't want that. I want you to tell me a story and make me care.
Okay, we covered these rules. Economize, favor the plain spoken and specific. This notion of the plain spoken, don't be a show off. I really liked that part of the rules. I thought, yes.
There's so little plain spoken and modest and true in the popular culture that when we come upon a writer or a person who, says what they mean what they say, and don't say it mean, my heart leaps because there's something so comforting about people not showing off, about people not doing literary pyrotechnics. One of the Neal's rules is if it sounds literary, it isn't. You got to take it out. It's pretentious, or it's elitist, or it's just showing off. So you'll think that we're fancier writers than we are. I don't want to read fancy writers. I want to read someone. There's a great quote in there by the wonderful screenwriter of Mrs. Doubtfire, Randi Mayem Singer, who said, "Tell me a story, make me care." And when someone will tell me a story in plain spoken English, where they're focusing on who the character is and helping me get grounded in the setting and helping the plot move along, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And there is so little of it. Everybody's told to make it fancier, to burnish it, to make it bounce off the page, to make it pop, I don't want that. I want you to tell me a story and make me care.
Your father had a neat way of talking about it with nickel words.
Yeah. He taught me, just that you could use nickel words to describe things instead of these 25-cent words that maybe you got from the thesaurus. Now, we're big fans of the thesaurus to help you find the right word, to help you find the strongest verb, which is, I think, rule 1. But by the same token, and somebody using a nickel word so that I don't have to look it up means I'm going to keep turning the page.
It's interesting that you brought up the thesaurus, because I've been one of those people when I see people where they're in meetings or something like that, and then they pull up the thesaurus, and I'm like, oh God, you're never going to really be able to come up with something that has that original, a word that you both use, quirky thing. If you're using a thesaurus, it's going to feel sort of forced and put on afterwards. So when I read that you both are fans of using a thesaurus, you go so far as to call it a book of magic spells. I thought, wow, Tammy, once again, you're going to have to open up your, judgmental ways.
And I tell the story of an old friend of mine who I was looking at it was back in the day of writing by hand. And this was sometime in the probably late 70s, early 80s. And she was writing short stories at the time. And I looked at a manuscript on her desk and I saw all these piled up on. Every once in a while, there would be a word with a whole bunch of other words piled up on top of it. And I asked what that was about. And she said, oh, that word really stuck out to me. It might be the right word. It's a really important word for the story. And I want to make sure I get the exact right word. And so I'm adding in other ones that might replace it. And that taught me that that's what a thesaurus is. There is a word that is perfect for what you are trying to say. Go find it. And if I see, and you develop an ear over time. That's not the right word. The most frequent conversation that Annie and I have about writing, while one of us is writing a piece, is what's the word for, or what's another word for blank?
Yeah.
And it is in the thesaurus. It isn't supposed to be in my head. I'm not Shakespeare. I don't have that many words in my head, right? So I go to a thesaurus and find the perfect word.
Mhm.
Okay. Keep the reader turning the page. Keep them moving. Don't lose them. Don't try to show off. And so in the beginning of our conversation, Neal, when you were talking about these rules, you talked about using Anglo-Saxon words and not
Yeah.
Latinate words.
Yeah.
And Annie, jokingly in the book, in your commentary on this, you write about how you were a college dropout at age 19 and you had to look up what this even meant. And I had to look it up too. I was like, what are we talking about? And so I believe in being a listener advocate, which is like being a reader advocate. One of the things you write about in Better Writing is an antagonistic reader is someone who's confused by what's happening. And I thought an antagonistic listener to any conversation also is someone who feels confused. I don't want our listeners to feel confused. I advocate for them. So I want to go back, Neal, to the Anglo-Saxon words, Latinate words. What are you talking about?
Okay, so you're ignoring my subhead to that chapter. Certainly rule 6 is prefer Anglo-Saxon words. It's a short way of putting what I'm saying. And then I explain it. Favor shorter, punchier Anglo-Saxon words over fancy, abstract Latinate words. Now, what I explain in here, and that's why these are kind of meditations in a certain way. Annie puts that fancy word on them. What I explain is that, and you pick up this kind of new little piece of knowledge if you hadn't been taught it before by reading this book, that actually English has two streams coming into it. Most languages come kind of directly through one stream. You know, Hindi comes out of Sanskrit in a kind of direct line and you can follow it. But weirdly, because of the way England developed, there's a stream coming from the north, which is a bunch of Scandinavian and Germanic languages that are called Anglo-Saxon. And there's a stream coming in from the south, which are all the Italian, Spanish, French cognates that sit inside of English. And it's a handy, if you start to notice that, you start to notice that a whole lot of the multisyllabic boring words are coming up from the south, and a whole lot of the crisp, brutal, get you right into the scene words are coming in from the north.
Discover on-demand videos and docuseries, explore a full schedule of daily live classes, and become part of an incredible community. At Sounds True One, we invite you inward to find your way your way.